We are live once again. Nate Mumford, as always, broadcasting live from Danbury, Connecticut. How's it going? How's your day going so far? It's so funny. It's another Thursday, and it's another rainy Thursday here in Danbury, Connecticut. So thank you for joining me. Hope you and your family and friends are safe. Today, I thought we would talk about Zetta back to basics and talking about audio, inputting audio, exporting audio, all those audio settings, and all of that good stuff. So as always, if you have questions or comments, you can post them right here. We'll answer them for you. If there's something very specific, or if you're a little shy and you want to just talk to me directly offline, shoot me a direct message. I respond to all of them after all of our Facebook Lives, and we'll take care of you from there as well. Of course, housekeeping stuff. Zetta 5.20.1 coming out in a couple weeks. We're looking for beta users. If you're interested in that, let me know. We also have the FTS portal. That's in there too. If you're working from home, we want to see your work from home photos. We'll give you a little RCS goodie bag. That's coming down the pipeline. Oh, the RCS Academy. Don't forget too. Zetta. We have Zetta and G-Selector certification. Zetta was released about 2 weeks ago. And so if you are curious about taking the Zetta certification course, again, as always, just let me know. I don't know if you know this yet, but as you can tell, I'm always here. So if you've got questions, let me know. I'm here to help out any way I can help you out. So let's just dive right into this good stuff. Can I change the color of the library? Hey, look at that. I got questions ready. Thank you, Di. Yes, you can change lots of different colors of the library itself. Let's dive right in here and let's talk about audio and all of that good stuff. So the first thing, you hear me say this kind of a lot of times, you know, with Zetta, it's a modern piece of radio automation software, latest and greatest from RCS, but you hear certain phrases like we can take MP2, MP3, WAV files, AAC, convert them to a default format of your choosing, and then whenever you ingest it into Zetta, we're going to save it as your default audio format. We're going to do a marks analysis, set the trim in, the trim out, and the segue points, and all of that good stuff. So what does that mean exactly? And let's talk about those settings first, right? So I have my Zetta open right here. I have my on-air module at the very top, logs bottom left, and my library on the bottom right. I'm going to go to this configuration here and system. That's the first place we're going to go. So I'm going to talk about first we'll start with the audio format. Let's start with there. So again, config system, the audio format. That's right here. This is essentially where you can define a lot of different settings in regards to, surprise, your audio format. So you can see here, what am I looking at exactly? So on the left-hand side, this is essentially my default, my profiles, if you will. If I want to create a brand new one, there's a little plus there. There's a delete to delete one. That's all pretty generic stuff all throughout Zetta. So what you're seeing here is the name, right? It's the name I give it, but the audio format, the bit rate, the sample rate, and the channels. This is what we care about. So you can see that I have a couple default here. So I had that linear wave, which is the PCM. I have some AAC in here as well. And just very simply showing you, here's the audio formats. PCM, which is a wave, MPG, MP3, MP4, AAC. Remember, these are going to be how Zetta saves those files. We can still ingest an MP2, but I can make my default be a linear 400 hertz, right? But in that circumstance, obviously just be aware. If I take an MP2, I have a cap there, right? If I take that cap and expand it to a WAV file, the reality is that we're just not going to save that cap, right? We're taking that compressed WAV file, we're expanding it, and we're just going to lose those highs and lows. It's just the nature of the beast. But you can still ingest those into Zetta and save them as WAV files here. Again, there's that sample rate. Usually 44.1 is kind of the basic, you know how that is. Channel, stereo, mono, all that good stuff. And once we define some audio formats right here, then we specify in the very bottom what we want those settings to be, right? So in there, as you can see, they're but asset specific. So we have song, spot, link, voice track, quick record, or other audio. Other audio is going to be those custom asset types you see here. I joke and say the Charlie Brown looking t-shirt. That's right here. So any other audio outside of song, spot, link, voice track, quick record, that's going to be here as well. Think of the system managed formats as going to be the ingest or the import into Zetta, and the content converters are going to be the export into Zetta. So we have some VBR files, CD extraction, which I guess, all right, technically you can argue that is also the ingest file. I'm really talking about here the export file drops. That's what I'm talking about here. That's where I consider the export, right? And of course the background recorder, what it records in there too. So again, so to correct myself here to be, of course, we're trying to teach you good lessons, best practices. These are still ingesting. The export file drop is how I mentally look at this window here. So you can see that I can specify a bunch of default formats, and then I can specify how they get imported in my system. So you might find yourself with songs to have the Wave 4400, or where I might have, let's say, the quick records could be maybe an MP3 or a Wave or some of those lines or something different. So those can be there too. That could be in the mix. And you can make this as complex or as simple as you want it to be. Remember, Zetta is all about you. It's about how you interpret the software. So if you interpret the software certain ways, like, hey, I need to save space, I have a small hard drive, then maybe I want to take my, spots, quick records of their audio at a lower rate, where if I have a library of, classical station and I have 500 gigs of audio, maybe I don't want them on Wave. Maybe I want them in MP3. It's whatever you care about, wherever you're choosing. In case you're wondering, what's usually the default if you're kind of in that wheelhouse of, okay, Nate, I get it. It's about me, but what's best practice? Usually Wave is the way to go. That's kind of the rule of thumb here in radio is if you got a Wave file, that's the highest quality. That's in there, the best broadcast. And also, by the way, not to get too much in the engineering aspect, but don't forget the hose metaphor and analogy. If I have, let's say, a hose that is 100 feet long, and I have water that has to go through that hose, it has to travel all through 100 feet of the hose. Where if I have the same hose and it's 10 feet, I only have 10 feet to go through. So what happens a lot in broadcast is we have Zetta. Zetta has its normalization. That goes to a processor at the transmitter site, which goes through the actual transmitter, which then goes over the frequency, which then goes over into your car stereo. And you can see that hose is getting longer and longer and longer. So if I do have a low quality MP2 that goes all throughout that process, is there a chance that we lose some quality? It depends. What's your hardware looking like? That's usually the idea right there, just so you know. I'm going to open up my phone here just to make sure I got my comments coming in. Of course, if you have any comments or questions, you can always comment below. I will answer them for you live in real time, especially if you're talking about some audio importing, exporting, and all of that good stuff. So again, we're going to set the audio type here, audio format. This is really a set it and forget it. I very rarely go to this window after doing my defaults, right? That's what we call them, your defaults. At that point in time, let's talk about essentially our audio processing, our marks analysis. So you can see here, these are some methods that you can choose. The no analysis, just so you know, there is a way to manually do a marks analysis. That's going to be over here in the actual audio utility. So this essentially, you can see I have Iris by Goo Goo Dolls because it was highlighted right here. There's a ton of options, but one of which is the marks analysis, which is right here. So if you do want to go and let's say do it on a manual process and not do it automatically, there's ways of doing that too. You set your defaults on here, set this to no analysis, and then when you manually do it, you'll be good to go. Normally, we recommend marks analysis because it keeps it consistent all throughout Zetta. If you have a lot of cooks in the kitchen, this will allow you to essentially go and specify exactly who is getting what, how, why, where, and all of that good stuff. For example, we have our trim in threshold, our trim out threshold, our segue threshold. Those are the three big ones. Now, you might think, okay, well, segue could be interpreted a couple different ways. Okay, well, in that case, maybe you leave segue threshold unchecked, right? And you only do the trim in and trim out. That's a possibility. Do you want to determine the intros? That's in there too. Sometimes it's defined by the ID3 tags or some other aspects as well. You can determine the intros. And of course, these will be for most all audio. Voice track settings, the trim in, the trim out, that's in there. Obviously, there's no segue threshold for voice track settings because by default, The user will define the segue point of the voice track into the element they're voice tracking into, right? Just very simply put, you got the heads, you got the voice track, you got the tails, right? At that point in time, if I'm going to trigger the tails from firing, I need to tell it when it's going to fire. That's the segue point, and that is the exact reason why we don't have that as an automatic setting. And then, of course, we have some time stretch and squeeze in here as well, and some advanced waveforms. That's also in there too for the audio processing. So at that point in time, I am not going to save my changes. We've essentially defined, in regards to audio, the default format and the default marks analysis. And remember, that's for everything. That's for your auto load. That's for your Zetta to go. When you add audio, it's still going to respect it at the Zetta level. That's in there. That's all that good stuff. So at this point in time, let's kind of talk about adding a brand new asset. So very simply put, we're talking about our library here. And this can range from adding new elements to essentially building your digital library, right? So just to kind of refresh here in case you're just checking out this video for the first time, we have our songs, links, spots, voice track, quick records. If you remember, that's exactly kind of what we just showed you in the marks analysis. These are kind of the building blocks, the defaults of the Zetta environment. If you are I have a lot of stations that are unique in which they don't have music, they have other content. They can use songs and just, that's where you go. You're using songs. It makes perfect sense. But if you're like, well, I don't think of it as songs, you can always go and, remove this songs folder and just use links, spots, and voice tracks. We have a lot of users who interpret Zetta, again, different ways based on them. It's not a song to them. It's a content. It's an asset. It's an element. A lot of different factors there too. So at this point in time, I have the songs, I have links, I have the spots, I have my custom asset types here. Those are in the mix as well. And remember, if I go to the songs tab and I hit the plus, that is going to give me the metadata song window, right? Because I'm working, this window here is essentially a metadata window, right? Metadata window. If I close this and go to links and I hit the plus, it's going to be a, metadata link window. And very simply put, morning show imaging, remember custom asset type, hit the plus, metadata, morning show imaging, right? So wherever you are inside the library, you're creating an asset in there, so to speak. And just to show you too, a very quick little bonus one, configuration, system, and where am I going here to? The custom fields, custom asset types. You can see here, custom fields. These are my system defaults. I have something here called OutQ for spots that I have for my asset type spot. It's a global attribute, and there you go, some values there. So again, if you want to have some custom asset types, you do that in here, or custom fields. That's also in the mix as well. Oh, I'm sorry, I'm jumping ahead of myself here. This was custom fields. This was the custom asset types. So this is going to be that morning show imaging, the Charlie Brown logo. And again, the custom fields are the attributes inside that. The reason why I confused the two of those is because I just did an article for Radio World, including the top 5 tips and tricks for Zetta. And that was one of the things I talked about. So my brain jumped over there too. But it's always good to know. Very simply put, by the way, spots. I'm going to double click on this element here. Under the extra tab, you'll see there's a little now outro here, OutQ for spots. That's because I created a custom field as part of my custom asset type. So very simply put, let's add some audio into Zetta. I'm going to hit this plus right here. I'm on the song tab. Thus, I have a metadata song window, right? That's right here. So what exactly do we do at this moment? And again, it's about your workflow. I'm going to throw out a couple scenarios here. And if you have any comments or questions, feel free to comment below. I'm checking them over here. So essentially, if you want to, you can go and you can, let's say, very simply put, go to the extra tab. There's a little CD extractor here. I know, funny enough, my laptop actually doesn't have a CD-ROM, so I can't show you how this works, but just take my word for it. It'll have your CD drive there. It's like D:/. And then you have all the tracks here. You can preview the tracks if you want to. You can also extract the selected tracks. And remember, this right here is all set from config, system, and then, not audio processing, sorry, audio format. And you can see here, CD extraction. That's where this is right there, okay? At that point in time, I can also find it from, browse the media. I can just click this and find it in Windows Explorer and go from there. That's a possibility. Me personally, if I'm doing a 1-to-1 ratio, I like the drag and drop. So I can go over here and let's just pick a day in the life. There's my marks analysis, waveform, queued, analyzing, and boom, it's going to be in here as well. And you can see that by default in here, I have if you can go all the way over here, I'm going to use my cursor to zoom in, move this over. There's my trim in. And you can see I probably could do a little better on do that trim in. I just have the default, that we have here in regards to our demo database. I have a intro time that's hit right there. And then I have, of course, the segue and the trim out. That's all in here as well. So you can see, obviously, day in the life. I had the little outro that we have, the Apple theme song. That's in here too. So if you wanted to go and say chop that out, you would just essentially go over here, click the trim out. And then I can maybe set the segue point, just single click that there, boom. Remember, you can always play it as well. You can play it and cue it up. I don't have anything queued up musically because that's copyrighted, just so you know. So we're just talking about these things aimlessly. If you have ID3 tags for MP3, the metadata will carry over. We get a lot of questions from Mr. Master, AIM, and all that good stuff. If you do have audio coming through there and they have ID3 tags, that metadata will correspond with the file that you import, and you'll get the metadata corresponding with that asset. So if you're on any of those FTP sites, that's going to be in there as well. Max, I'll just call you Max. Sorry. Thank you for checking in, Max. Sorry, I'm trying to do two things at once, and sometimes my catches. So thank you for checking in, Max. So at that point in time, so we have the audio is in here, right? I dragged and dropped the audio in. Again, just to review, on the left-hand side, this is going to be the stations. Remember, Zetta is an enterprise piece of software. This right now is active for RCS Hot AC. If I want to see station-specific settings, this is going to be station-specific settings for RCS Hot AC. If I go in here and add I can play in the morning show only with the hour restriction grid, right? That's new to 4.19.2. If I jump to RCS Hot Country, you're going to see that, well, why'd that grid move? Well, it's not active for RCS Hot Country. In addition to that, I can also see here, too, there's an hour restriction morning show only on RCS Hot AC. I can remove this element. If there is an end date, right, let's just say very simply put, it's yesterday, right? You can see I have an end date here prior to what I'm going to play right now. If I save this, right, so this is 9/9/20. If I go to my default is everybody. If I define this as, let's say, I don't know, the 12th, you'll see that everybody now gets the default. However, RCS Hot AC still has 9/9 associated with it. Very simply put, you have a car dealership and you wanted to have added value. You have that 5-station cluster and you have that, of course, that random AM. No offense to those smaller AM out there or those HD2s. That's what I program. You could have, let's say added value where you're paying for the primary P1 station in the cluster and you get added value on one of those sister AM stations. And there's a special sale going on Labor Day weekend here in the States. And you're open up on Sunday. And let's say you get free spots on the AM, but as a free spot, I want you to end on the Saturday, not the Sunday. Well, in that case, and again, we're using the spots metaphor here or the example, I would go and say, okay, well, you're going to expire on Sunday at midnight, okay, or 11:59 p.m. Whereas if I'm RCS Hot AC, and this could be that, AM station, you might say you're going to expire on the Saturday at 11:59 p.m. You see the difference there? So what's happening is when I go to play this spot on RCS Hot AC, it's not going to be allowed to play because I told it not to. Whereas it can play on RCS Classic Rock and RCS Hot Country because I changed the end dates on those. They are using the default end date versus the specific special end date that is a station-specific setting for RCS Hot AC. All that makes sense so far? And of course, with the station-specific setting, we have mood, energy, tempo, and all that good stuff. Going back over here to the actual marks analysis window, we, of course, just very briefly have other options here. There's a mix-in option, just so you know. Those are for stations that have long intro with music beds. They just behave a little differently in the sense of how you voice track. There's intro 1, intro 2, intro 3. There's early seg. Me personally, I use early seg for all my stations. This is essentially a way of saying, very simply put, if I have imaging that's both dry and produced, do your best to put the dry portion of the imaging over the element, but I never want to overstep on that intro. Very simply put, I have a 10-second sweeper. 5 seconds are produced, 5 seconds are dry. I have an intro time of 3 seconds. I will play, of the 5 seconds of dry, I will play 3 seconds over the 3-second intro. If I have a song with 5 seconds, it's going to play the 5 seconds. If I got a song that's got a 10-second intro, right, I'm still going to play the full 5 seconds because that's going to be when I'm allowed to play dry over the piece of imaging. So, Jai, thank you for checking in. Horacio, as always, thank you for checking in as well. If you guys have questions or comments, feel free to comment below. I'll answer them for you live in real time. And then, of course, we have the fade out. We have the segue point, and we have the trim out. That's there too. We have some hook, loop, and cue point options in there. And if you're using those cue points, which are essentially ways to trigger some GPI, GPOs inside those elements, just know we have some enhancements coming down the pipeline in those cue points on 5.20.1, which you can be a beta user if you wanted to as well. So going back to importing audio, we have, of course, the burn the CD. We have, of course, the browse media file. At that point in time, I can also drag and drop this element in here. It will do the marks analysis. Cool, we're good to go. Don't forget, I've had some past videos on this, so I won't cover it too deep, but just know we do have rcsworks.com/rcs-live. Or if you're watching this on Facebook, just go to our video section. There's an archive there broken down by product. You can see exactly what I'm talking about that are in there as well. And so from here, what you can do is essentially go into configuration and system, and we have the auto load. Now, just very briefly again, I said this in a previous video, you create a location, and then from the location, you define where the auto load is looking for that location. So again, you can see I have a C temp, I have an auto import folder, and I have a FTP that I have configured as well. I then have an auto load. From there, I have multiple settings here. So I have just an auto import for songs. You can see what the machine is processed by, the location, the file type, what it's going to be in the system. So in this case, it's going to be a song with an external ID matching on. If it doesn't match, we're going to do with it. There's some settings here. Are we going to populate external IDs? Are we not going to? We give it a category. Lots of stuff in here, but you can see the import location. That becomes key in here. In the advanced side, we get a lot of questions about this. A lot of users talking about how they'll have essentially multiple auto loads here. One for every FTP service, one for kind of every station, one for every category. That's great. Have tons of auto import locations. That's what we want. Me personally, I like a lot of control in my database, in my settings. So I like having, multiple auto loads going in specific asset types with specific locations, right? But the big thing here you want to check is the perform marks analysis. Because a lot of times what happens is users go and they're doing that Mr. Master and all that stuff. They're creating all these FTP imports, and there's like, let's say 10 of them. And they go in here and they get everything all nice and neat. And they're like, oh, but Nate, something weird's happening. I got some trim in stuff that's got some issues. I got some dead air. I don't know what's going on. I have to go in and fix it and blah, 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 blah. I get it. We totally get it. The first thing, usually 8 times out of 10, we go, did you go to advanced? Did you click on the perform marks analysis? Oh, there's a second tab there. Because everything else here for the most part is kind of the polling interval. Yeah, it depends on when you want it to be, right? That's a set it and forget it. The mapping template, or what do you want to do with after the import? Do you want to keep and delete later? Do you want to never delete? That's all in there. So it really depends on what you like and what you don't like. So a lot of times some engineers will go in here, just say, I like the defaults. They're fine. And they might have this checked off by default. And then all of a sudden they're having some issues with their audio, and that's why. And by the way, when I say issues with the audio, I'm just talking about just the labor it takes to fix the trim in and trim out. It's the user interaction. And especially with radio these days, we're really trying to automate a lot of these workflows because, let's be honest, you're wearing a lot of hats, right? Let's just call a spade a spade. You know, if you're watching this, you're probably wearing a lot of hats. And this little checkbox here is one of those nice gotchas to be like, you know what? I'm setting up my 15 auto load sections. I have all these locations. I jumped my auto load. I have those all in here too. And I know that Nate said, don't forget about the perform marks analysis tool. That will be in here. The normalization aspect, that's done during playout. So in case you're wondering about users adding audio from remote locations, don't forget the normalization is going to be done at playout at the station level, right? Configuration, stations, and I'll go on RCS Hot AC, click on here, go to my normalization. See, this is done at the station level. This is done at the admin, the enterprise level. And of course, I can get specific by going to the multiple locations, the multiple auto load sections that will give me different categories and different stations here at the very bottom if I wanted to do that. So there you go. Advanced perform marks analysis. You're welcome. Last chance for questions here. Thank you, V. Thank you, V, as always, for checking in. Chris, thank you as well for checking in. If any other questions, let me know here. Last call for questions as I get ready to wrap this up. I like to personally, in the world of remote workflows and hybrid workflows, we're talking about, I know this is coming down the pipeline where real estate's going to start seeing a shift in radio. And the reality is you might have 5 stations, you might have 2 production studios, you might have 5 program directors and 5 music directors, whatever it may be. And everybody has to work in the software, but you might not have the studio space to do that. So one of the things I've been encouraging users is to use Zetta to go. Because of course in Zetta to go, you can control the station, you can add audio, you can essentially work within Zetta to go, and it just takes up a seat. That's all it is. It's pretty simple. But if you're, let's say, a production director, or we had a lot of conversations in regards to, I have 500 spots that I add every Friday. Well, do you want to add 500 spots by hand? It's very, very tedious. Instead, what you can do is have a Windows batch file or have Zetta go and grab that from the FTP, auto ingest it with an auto load section. You can then go, if it's a weekly thing or not, you can say what I'm going to match on. Like if it's a traffic file, weekly or daily traffic file, you might want to match on title or maybe file path or external ID or a file name. Usually file name for traffic is usually the best. And then what do you want to do? Replace the audio only, replace everything, merge the change fields. Usually it's kind of replace the audio only. That's in there too. And if you're a production director during COVID and you get stuck at home or you can't use the studio, or just to be perfectly blunt, they don't want you in the studio because it's too many bodies in the studio. Well, in that case, work from home. And if you have Zetta to go, that means you have a VPN. Obviously, if you're in the work environment, if you're in the office, you don't need a VPN for Zetta to go because in theory, you're already inside the Zetta database, network speaking. And so what you can do is use that VPN, connect to, of course, your database, have a folder, a shortcut that you have there. And then when you click on it, you connect to the VPN, you take all the folders that you create, save it into the folders, all the assets you create into a folder. And then once it's there, you have, of course, here, the Zetta auto import. You have the polling intervals. It's going to see that new asset, bring it in here, and we're good to go. Me personally, I probably would have every station and every asset type with its own auto load section. Of course, if it's spots, it's across the board. It's for everybody. So that's in there too. My folder scheme would look something like, an import folder, and then you would have, songs with one folder, links, one folder, spots, one folder, custom asset type, one folder. And then again, in that location here, we would essentially go and have, each one of those broken down. So you can see here, I have Zetta import sound effects. This could be Zetta import songs, spots, so on and so forth. So yeah, let's see here. Chris, let's go back and watch the previous. Yes. So Chris was saying yes. So a lot of times we get a lot of questions from people talking about how, hey, can I get a demo of Zetta? And it's really tough for us because we'd love to have you play with the software. The issue becomes is the configuration, right? Because again, this is a commercial grade piece of software. We have audio paths we have to worry about. We have audio content stores. We have the physical audio itself, right? Where are you getting that music from for a demo database? There's some copyright and license issues there. And so we do want to make sure we get you set up properly. And that does take some configuration and settings. So that's what Chris was saying there. But once you get in there, it is so much fun. And we want to make your lives easy and maximize your efficiency. That's the idea there too. So Chris, thanks for reaching out. If you want any ideas on videos, Chris, just comment or direct message us. I'll point you in certain directions. There's a great archive, high quality videos, or rcsworks.com/rcs-live. And then, of course, you have the Facebook video section broken down by product. So if you're looking for anything in particular, there's a great voice tracking one. There's some G-Selector stuff in there. There's the auto import section. There's remote workflows. There's also new enhancements for 5.20.1. There's a video in there, too, coming down the pipeline as well. So enjoy that there, too. Last call for questions here. Make sure Lee and Alla, thank you for checking in, and really appreciate it as well, as always. And again, so if it was me personally, we're talking about importing, exporting audio. Again, burn it from a CD, drag and drop, find it from Windows Media Explorer, or my personal favorite, create that hierarchy of locations and folders, put that on your FTP and share it, and then really maximize your efficiency there. The very last thing I will show you is there's also a way to export your stuff here. I'm going to go and minimize that for 1 second. So if you go over here, you will see that I can drag and drop stuff. So very simply put, I'll take Coldplay here, or better yet, there's a spot, we'll say. I can take KFC, drag and drop it over, and you can see from there, there's that element. And if you notice, I dragged and dropped it over. It would drag and dropped as an MP3, just so you know. See that MP3 320? And that's how I dropped in there. This will work for Outlook and a bunch of other information as well. So if you do want to go and have that in there, I would go and adjust it accordingly. That's in there. And if you wanted to, configuration, and again, system in there. And that's going to be the the audio format. That's there, right there. So sounds good. Sounds great. Last call for questions, concerns, all that good stuff. I think we're good to go here. I will catch you next Thursday. Actually, I might not catch you next Thursday. I'm on vacation. We might have a best of show. We'll figure that out for you there too. So I will see you when I see you. Any questions, comments, you're watching this after the fact, go ahead and comment below. Let me know, and we'll take care of you there too. So thank you so much for listening. We'll see you later. Have a great week and weekend, and be safe, wear your mask, all that good stuff. And I'll talk to you when I talk to you. Bye-bye.